2023 is a special year in the history of the I&M Canal. It marks the 175th anniversary of its opening, which transformed Chicago and northern Illinois into the key crossroads of the American mid-continent, ushering in a new era of trade and travel for the entire nation. To commemorate this great milestone, the Canal Corridor Association, coordinating entity for the nation's first national heritage area, is stepping forward to coordinate a year-long celebration from April of 2023 to April of 2024, reaching from Chicago to LaSalle, Peru. As part of the opening week of this celebration, we are hosting this, our 26th Boat Captains Luncheon. The Canal Corridor Association launched the Canal Boat Captains Award in 1992 to honor individuals and organizations who have contributed to the success of the I&M Canal National Heritage Area and who have furthered the principles on which CCA was founded. Hats off to our former chairman, John Treader, for starting us on this path. This year, we are honoring several individuals and groups from one end of the canal to the other, from Chicago to LaSalle County. Starting on the east side, on original plats of Chicago that were once commissioned by the I&M Canal Commissioners in 1830, we honor the Friends of the Chicago River, who opened the McCormick Bridge House Chicago River Museum in 2006 on the northwest corner of Wacker and Michigan Avenue. This museum is dedicated to telling the story of the Chicago River and its watershed, from pre-colonization to the modern day, plus the history of the bridges that open along the river. See the first-hand journal accounts of early traders and learn about the changes, good and bad, brought on by the opening of the I&M Canal, including the population explosion of Chicago from 400 people in 1830 to nearly 300,000 in 1870. Put this museum on your 2023 list of places to see and explore all the stories they have to tell. While the Friends have been doing the good work of leading the charge to clean up the river since their founding in 1979, the museum, with the help of the Chicago Riverwalk development, opened the doors to reach many more people. Last year alone, nearly 25,000 people toured the exhibits and left with a new understanding of the Chicago River and the river system. Executive Director Margaret Frisbee and Museum Director Josh Coles tell the story of how thousands of people worked together to clean up the river, thereby increasing the fish population from 7 species in 1979 to nearly 80 species today. The museum covers 5 stories of the look-alike bridge house, completed in 1920, and the exhibits were rewritten and enhanced while the museum was closed during COVID in 2020 and 2021. Congratulations to the staff, board, and volunteers of the Friends of the Chicago River for their efforts in cleaning up the river and for sharing their work with a larger audience through the Bridge House Museum, thereby enhancing the overall mission of the I&M Canal National Heritage Area. Moving about 12 miles southwest, we arrive at the site of the Chicago Portage, one of Illinois' few National Historic Sites designated by the National Park Service in 1952. Our next captains are the owners of the site, the Cook County Forest Preserve, and a dedicated group of volunteers, the Friends of the Chicago Portage. History forgotten is history lost, according to Gary Mechanic, head of the Friends of the Chicago Portage. About 25 years ago, while working for the I&M Canal National Heritage Corridor Civic Center Authority, he was amazed to learn that the I&M Canal was created because of a comment made by Frenchman Louis Joliet following an expedition. In 1673, Joliet and Father Jacques Marquette were commissioned to travel from Wisconsin down the Mississippi River by canoe to see where it went. On their return, they took a recommendation from Native Americans, leaving the Mississippi near St. Louis, and took a shortcut to the northeast, traveling up the Illinois River to Lake Michigan. About 12 miles from the lake, they head to Portage, carry their canoes and supplies from the west end of Mud Lake to the Chicago River. The idea was remembered for more than 150 years before the I&M Canal was created. In 1929, the Sanitary District of Chicago granted the Chicago Portage site to the Forest Preserve District of Cook County, and its national significance was honored when it was declared a National Historic Site by the National Park Service in 1952. When Mechanic first visited the site, it had a parking lot and a statue, but the site was badly overgrown. "I'm a third-generation Chicagoan," Mechanic said. "Through 12 years of public school, I learned nothing of this, and Illinois mandates that local history studies are supposed to be part of the school curriculum. There's so much multicultural history here because of the Chicago Portage. People should know about it. Through his determination, Mechanic was able to obtain 2 grants. He used one to fund teacher-created 4th-grade curriculums, and with the other he funded a new group, the Friends of the Chicago Portage. They became a partner to the Forest Preserve of Cook County, and for the next 2 years, they gave free weekly public tours of the Chicago Portage site. He and the other members continued to work at the site, even once the funds ran out. Starting in 2002, on the 50th anniversary of its designation as a National Historic Site, the Friends started doing ecological restoration. There have been several plans for the site over the years, but none were fully implemented. In 2010, the Forest Preserve's governing body created a communications department and updated their master plan for the site with several stakeholders, including the Friends of the Chicago Portage and the Canal Corridor Association. Since then, the site has more interpretation and better trails, and the Forest Preserve continues to plan for additional infrastructure and interpretation. The volunteers still dedicate 1 day a month to cleaning, clearing, planting, and restoring natural habitats at the site. They also provide free tours on the first Saturday of the month, May through November, with other programs and lectures during the winter months. We honor the Friends of the Chicago Portage for their years of effort benefiting the site and the resources supplied by the Forest Preserve of Cook County. Thank you all. Continuing southwest about another 12 miles along the I&M Canal, the Sanitary and Ship Canal, and the Des Plaines River, we find our next captains in the village of Lemont. In fact, they actually are the village of Lemont. The I&M Canal, the quarries lining the canal, and the village of Lemont have all withstood the ups and downs of time. The quarrying of limestone and the building of the canal brought workers and industry to this place, and the village was officially established in 1873. Which reminds us, happy 150th birthday, Lemont. Lemont limestone, or Athens marble, was known far and wide and was quarried for many Midwest buildings, including the Chicago Water Tower. The I&M Canal transported goods from its opening in 1848 until the larger Sanitary and Ship Canal replaced it here in 1900. The population fell like a rock after the Sanitary and Ship was built. Fast forward to the 1970s. In 1970, the village of Lemont purchased their part of the now recreational I&M Canal, and with the signing of the nation's first heritage area in 1984, the community got a boost. Slowly, it was growing again and being revitalized. The quarries were filled with water, the I&M Trail remained, and the community began to value their historic downtown, its small-town feel, and the recreation potential. Plans for redevelopment were moving along, and new businesses were opening in the historic downtown. The 2008 economic downturn stopped the village's plans for nearly 10 years, but with Mayor Egofsky's leadership and his team starting in 2017, they were back on track with development for both the uptown and the downtown. You can tell the village is serious about something when you look at their committees. The Art and Culture Commission, Downtown Focus Group, Heritage Corridor and Outdoor Recreation Commission, and the Historic Preservation Commission all speak to their goals and commitments. Downtown buildings are now full, and the quarries are magnets for fishing and boating. A private adventure park, the Forge, opened next to the canal and the downtown. The village has worked with local organizations and businesses and has a full calendar of events. They have embraced the local trails and will soon have 3 locations of I&M Canal bike share rental bikes. We salute the village of Lemont and their many partners for reinvesting in their natural, cultural, and historic resources, thus revitalizing one of the jewels of the Illinois and Michigan Canal National Heritage Area. Just down the road, or should we say canal, we look to Joliet. Since 2002, there has been a large complex of architecturally and historically significant buildings which have been vacant on Joliet's east side. If you guessed the old Joliet prison, you'd be right. Since that time, there have been discussions on how to adaptively reuse the 20-acre complex, but it wasn't until 2013 that the right people got together to discuss the options and work out the incredibly difficult task of getting the state of Illinois, the city of Joliet, and the Joliet Area Historical Museum to agree on a plan. The Joliet Correctional Center was opened in 1858 along the I&M Canal and was situated on limestone to increase its security and to allow inmates to quarry stone. The original building was designed by architect William W. Boyington in the prison or castle style, which included a crenellated parapet and locally quarried buff-colored limestone walls. The prison has always been famous, and it was considered state-of-the-art when it was built. Prisons have always fascinated people, whether it's due to their secrecy or their famous occupants, but the movie industry has played a big role in people's awareness and curiosity. In Joliet's case, it was The Blues Brothers, filmed in 1980, that boosted its notoriety and has assisted in its reopening as part of the Joliet Area Museum Complex. Museum Executive Director Greg Pierbolt credits two people in particular who steered its reuse: Quinn Adamowski, the museum board chair, and Bob Odekirk, the Joliet mayor. By 2017, they had a lease from the state and the keys. The men and women of the Will County and Joliet building trades donated their labor to make sure the buildings would be safe for visitors, and in 2018, the tours began. Then, on a spectacular August evening in 2022, they welcomed 5,700 people, including the Blues Brothers, Dan Aykroyd and Jim Belushi. Hats off to all the officials and volunteers who came together to create another Illinois-Michigan Canal National Heritage Area gem to add to the long list of why visitors should come to our area. So far, our honorees' accomplishments have been in environmental restoration and education, interpretation and storytelling, downtown revitalization and economic development, and historic architecture and the development of historic attractions. Now we turn to something you probably weren't expecting: 300-million-year-old fossils. Continuing westward along the canal and the Illinois River, we turn our attention to another waterway, the Mazon Creek, located in the heart of Grundy County. There are several hidden gems and National Historic Landmarks within the Illinois and Michigan Canal National Heritage Area, and much of what happens within a National Heritage Area depends on a few people getting together and having an idea. In fact, that's how this building eventually became this building, the Gaylord Building in Lockport. Thank you to Jerry Edelman, Gaylord and Dorothy Donnelly, and Barbie Donnelly for bringing about this transformation. That's also how the Mazon Creek Fossil Tours began, when the president of the Canal Corridor Association married the landowner of a portion of the national landmark Mazon Creek fossil beds, and then a university professor showed up at the owner's door asking to do research. The idea of sharing this one-of-a-kind, private, hard-to-reach site was born. The Mazon Creek Fossil Tours began 11 years ago as a way to share this site and help the Canal Corridor Association raise local funds needed to match the National Park Service funds it receives. Over the years, a one-day tour grew to two. Then in 2019, it expanded to two separate events, one for families and kids, the other for fossil collectors. The event includes an introduction to these 300-million-year-old fossils, along with a hay ride down to the river, hours in the creek hunting for fossils, abundant farm-to-table food and drink al fresco, and a time for sharing and identifying the fossils found. Over the years, a community of fossil enthusiasts stepped forward to assist with the work of the event and to increase its educational value. We celebrate Pete Kodat, Dave Dolak, Andrew Young, Marie Anku, and the other volunteers for helping the Canal Corridor Association fulfill its mission of education in a very unique way. Now the next generation landowner, Corey Kodat, is poised to carry on this tradition that was started by his grandfather. Continuing along the canal route, we arrive at Seneca, 70 miles west of Bridgeport and the eastern terminus of the I&M Canal. What started in 2009 with a group of 12 people deciding to update a 65-page paperback history that was written for the village's centennial celebration in 1965 turned into this. The original idea was to produce an updated history in time for Seneca's sesquicentennial celebration in 2015. The group requested information from the community, and soon enough, artifacts, letters, and photographs came flooding in. The city was nice enough to give the committee room to store the artifacts and files. Everyone in the group wrote about something of interest to them, and 428 pages later, the project was complete. The group also began to create small exhibits for the town's shipyard days, acknowledging their contributions in building landing ship tank ships for World War II, which instantly changed their small farming community. At the same time, the Seneca Port District wanted to either tear down or restore the 1912 Seneca train station. Soon enough, there were discussions on whether the building could be used as a welcome center or a museum. The Seneca Historical Guild decided that they wanted the building, and the Seneca Port District moved the building across the tracks, constructed a basement, and began restorations. In June of 2016, the Seneca Area Heritage Museum opened with basic exhibits, and they hired an intern to archive the many papers, photos, and artifacts that were collected during their book project with a grant from the Canal Corridor Association. One of the Guild's founders was a high school teacher, Jeff Meyerhofer, who has involved his students in the research and development of many of the exhibits you will find in the museum today. This has truly been a community project. Congratulations to the Seneca Historical Guild and the citizens and students of Seneca for establishing and developing the Seneca Area Heritage Museum and the archiving of the community's history. Continuing west, we come to the village of Utica, located 91 miles from the eastern end of the canal. The LaSalle County Historical Society is 116 years old and has done a great job of staying relevant in an ever-changing world. In the last 10 years, they have expanded their footprint in Utica on both sides of the canal by adding 5 buildings to their campus. In the 1960s, they acquired their first building, which was a warehouse along the canal that opened in 1848, the same year the canal opened. Edmund Thornton was a catalyst for that first building. Their more recent acquisitions include a one-room schoolhouse and a blacksmith shop, both of which they use in their education of 4th graders throughout LaSalle County. Most recently, they purchased the Utica Lumber Shed and a grain storage facility. These buildings are along Route 171, which is the main road from I-80 to Starved Rock State Park and sees an astonishing amount of traffic. This visibility has attracted more visitors and allowed them to help sustain their operations with the addition of a canal market. It has also doubled their exhibit space, which is climate-controlled, with added space for meetings and events. They have carried on their iconic events such as the Burgoo Festival, which began in 1969, and they've added new popular events such as Wild Bill Hickok Days. They have added exhibits with national significance, such as the Radium Dial Girls, and are also working to digitize their collections so they can be shared far and wide. We salute the leadership and hard work of the LaSalle County Historical Society in securing the important stories of our collective history for generations to come. Thank you. We end by thanking all of those who have contributed financially and with their time and expertise to these efforts. It does take a community of people to create and maintain a vibrant national heritage area, and we are truly grateful for your continued support. Thank you.